There is a document being processed right now. It has your name on it. Not a metaphor, not a feeling. A divine record, written before your mother knew she was carrying you, sealed in the archives of heaven. And today, at this exact moment, someone in the throne room just stamped it approved. You didn't click on this by accident. That needs to settle into your chest before we go any further. Because the enemy has spent years trying to convince you that you're ordinary, that you're overlooked, that the silence you've been living in means God forgot your address. But silence isn't abandonment. Silence is preparation. And what God has been preparing for you has a number attached to it that would make your knees buckle if you saw it written out. I want you to stop scrolling. Stop multitasking. If you're lying in bed right now, sit up. If you're sitting, plant your feet on the floor. Because what's about to be spoken over your life in the next several minutes is not content, it's a confrontation. Heaven is confronting the narrative of lack you've been rehearsing in private. Heaven is confronting every whisper that told you your season was over before it began. Before we go any further, if you've never subscribed to this channel, do that right now. Because this is not the last word God wants to speak over you, this is just the beginning. And if this message is landing somewhere deep in your spirit, drop the number 777 in the comments right now. Or type, I receive, and mean it. Because your declaration activates something. Your faith, spoken out loud even through a typed comment, breaks agreement with the lie that said, you don't qualify. You do. You were always going to be here for this. There is a fortune with your name on it. And God is about to tell you exactly why it was written, what it contains, and how you are going to walk into it. Stay with me. Every section of this message carries something different, something deeper, something that will hit a part of you that hasn't been touched in a very long time. Let's go. Let's start at the beginning. Not your beginning, the beginning of the record. Because most people think the story of their life starts the moment they take their first breath. But that's not when God began writing. The book of Jeremiah opens with something staggering. God saying to a young man who felt completely unqualified, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." That word "knew" in the original Hebrew is yada. It doesn't mean God was simply aware of your existence the way you're aware of a stranger passing on the street. Yada means intimate, covenant knowledge. It means God studied you, chose you, set you apart before a single cell of your body had even arranged itself. Think about what that means for you right now. Every moment you felt like an outsider. Every room where you smiled but felt invisible. Every relationship where you poured yourself out and still ended up alone. None of it happened because you were forgotten. It happened because you were being protected from a version of your life that was too small for what was written about you before time started moving. There is a kind of person who carries a weight they can't fully explain. They feel things more deeply than others. They sense things before they happen. They have a gravity in their spirit that people either find magnetic or feel threatened by. And for years, maybe even decades, that person has been told, directly or indirectly, that there is something wrong with them, that they're too much or not enough, or both simultaneously. If that sounds like you, I need you to hear this clearly. You were not made wrong. You were made marked. And the very things that made you feel strange in ordinary spaces are the precise tools God engineered for an extraordinary assignment. The record with your name on it didn't come from a place of pity. God didn't approve this fortune because he felt sorry for your struggle. He approved it because he calculated your capacity before he calculated your calling, and the two are an exact match. You are not receiving something beyond you. You are receiving something that was always, specifically, for you. Now I want to talk about the word fortune, because I don't want you to reduce it to money. When heaven uses the language of blessing and inheritance, it is speaking in a currency far richer than anything printed on paper. Yes, the provision is real. Yes, the financial turnaround you've been praying over is legitimate and it is coming. But the fortune that has your name on it is multidimensional. It has layers. The first layer is restoration. There are things that were taken from you, some through your own choices, some through other people's cruelty, some through seasons of warfare so intense you didn't even recognize it as spiritual attack at the time. You thought it was just bad luck. You thought it was just your life. But heaven kept a ledger, and every subtraction that happened outside of God's plan has been recorded, and the interest on that debt has been compounding. Joel 2:25 says, God will restore the years the locust has eaten. Not some of the years, the years. Every chapter that felt stolen is being rewritten into a comeback that will make the people who watched you fall completely rethink what they thought they knew about your story. The second layer is identity. You've been living inside a version of yourself that was built around survival. You learned how to be who people needed you to be so that you could stay safe, stay connected, stay relevant. And somewhere in all that adapting, you lost access to who you actually are. The fortune coming for you includes the full recovery of your true self, your original voice, your God-designed personality, the version of you that existed in the blueprints before the world got its hands on you and started filing down your edges. The third layer is influence. What God is approving is not just a comfortable life. It is a seat at tables you haven't been invited to yet. It is a platform, a voice, a presence that changes the atmosphere when you enter a room. The fortune is not just for you, it flows through you, and it carries everyone in your sphere into a new dimension of possibility. You are not just a recipient, you are a conduit. And God has been waiting for the right moment to open that channel fully. But here's where we have to get honest. Because there's a reason many chosen people never step into what was written for them, and it has nothing to do with God's willingness. God never withholds. His nature is abundance. His character is generosity. The delay almost always lives on the human side of the equation, and specifically in one place: the identity wound. An identity wound is what happens when you've been defined by pain for so long that you unconsciously reject anything that contradicts that definition. If you've spent 15 years telling yourself or being told that you're the one who struggles, that you're the one things never quite work out for, that you're the one who prays but somehow the breakthrough always seems to land on someone else's doorstep, then when God begins to move in your direction, something inside you gets uncomfortable. Not because you don't want the blessing, but because a part of you doesn't believe you're the person who receives it. Psychologists call this cognitive dissonance. The Spirit calls it a stronghold. And the only thing that dismantles it is truth spoken directly into it, repeatedly, until the lie loses its structural integrity. So let me speak some truth right now. You are not the exception to God's promises. You are not the fine print at the bottom of the covenant. You are not the person whose faith is somehow technically insufficient. Every verse that was ever written about healing is written about you. Every promise about abundance is a promise to you. Every declaration about being more than a conqueror is including your name, your situation, your history, your future. The covenant is not exclusive of you. It was written with you in mind. And the wound, the one that makes you flinch when good things start to happen, that wound is what God is targeting right now. Not because it makes you weak, but because on the other side of that wound is the most fearless, most surrendered, most powerful version of yourself that the world has been waiting to encounter. The healing of the wound is part of the fortune. I want to tell you about a pattern I've noticed in Scripture. A pattern that almost nobody talks about because it's uncomfortable. Every single person God chose for a significant assignment went through a period of apparent invisibility just before their moment of manifestation. Not a short pause, not a brief inconvenience, a real extended season of hiddenness that from the outside looked like failure and from the inside felt like abandonment. Joseph spent 13 years in a pit and a prison before he stood before Pharaoh. 13 years. And in that entire stretch, there is no recorded miracle, no angelic visitation, no burning bush. Just a young man holding on to a dream that kept getting further and further from the version of his life he was currently living. Moses spent 40 years in the desert after fleeing Egypt. 40 years of obscurity after what had been a life of prominence. And the burning bush didn't appear until he had been completely stripped of every identity that wasn't rooted in God. David was anointed king as a teenager and didn't sit on the throne until he was 30 years old. In between, he ran for his life, grieved the loss of friendships, lived in caves, and watched corrupt leadership thrive while he suffered. And yet, the Psalms he wrote in those caves became the spiritual language of billions of human beings across thousands of years of history. Do you see the pattern? The hiddenness was not punishment, it was curriculum. Every single one of those seasons was producing something in the person that the assignment required. The throne required a Joseph who had been broken of arrogance and shaped by suffering into someone who could steward power without being destroyed by it. The burning bush required a Moses who had run out of himself. The kingdom required a David whose worship had been forged in caves and not just rehearsed in sanctuaries. Your season of hiddenness has been doing the same work. You have been in the curriculum. And the fact that you are still here, still praying, still carrying that flicker of belief even when everything told you to let it go, that is the evidence that the curriculum is almost complete. Now let's talk about the specific nature of what's being released. Because I believe God has a word for different categories of what you've been waiting on. And I want to speak to each one. For those of you who have been praying about finances, a specific situation, a debt, an opportunity that seems impossibly out of reach, a business idea you've been sitting on because you don't see the path forward, hear this. The provision already exists. It is already allocated. The question has never been whether God has the resources. The question has been about timing and alignment. And the alignment is happening right now. There are doors being opened in conversations you don't even know are happening. There are people being positioned in your path who carry keys to opportunities that match the exact dream you've been holding. Do not despise the small conversations coming up. Do not overlook the unexpected connections. The chain of events leading to your provision has already been set in motion. You are simply moving toward the moment where you'll be able to see it. For those of you praying about relationships, about loneliness, about feeling like everyone around you has found their people while you're still searching for yours, God sees that ache. He doesn't mock it. He doesn't tell you to just be more grateful and stop wanting connection. He designed you for it. And the isolation you've walked through has not been permanent architecture. It has been a temporary condition used to protect you from relationships that would have diminished you, and to developing you a depth of character that makes you exactly the kind of person that genuine, covenant-level relationships are drawn to. The loneliness is ending. What's coming is not just a person or a community. It's belonging. Real belonging. The kind where you don't have to perform. For those of you carrying a calling you can barely articulate, a sense that you were made to do something significant, but you can't fully name it, can't fully see it, and some days wonder if you invented it, I want you to know. Callings are rarely clear at the beginning. They are usually felt before they are understood. That persistent pull in your chest is not imagination, it is divine navigation. And it is leading you exactly where you need to go. There's a moment in the story of Ruth that I think is one of the most quietly extraordinary scenes in all of Scripture. Ruth, a foreign woman who has lost everything, finds herself gleaning in a field, picking up the leftover grain that harvesters deliberately left behind for the poor. This is her position, the edges, the leftovers, what nobody else wanted. And then Boaz sees her. And the text says, he asked his servant, "Whose young woman is this?" He noticed her. He inquired about her. And when he learned her story, the loyalty she had shown, the sacrifice she had made, the way she had refused to abandon Naomi even when it cost her everything, Boaz didn't see a foreign woman in a field. He saw someone whose life was saturated with covenant faithfulness. So he did something that changed the entire trajectory of her life. He told his harvesters to leave extra grain behind on purpose for her, to pull stalks from the bundled harvest and drop them where she was walking. He engineered her abundance while she was still in the season of gleaning leftovers. Listen to what that means for you. You may still be in the gleaning season. You may feel like you're living off margins, the edges of what other people are experiencing. But there is a Boaz principle at work in your life right now. God has instructed people, systems, opportunities, and moments to drop extra in your path, to leave it intentionally. And what feels like stumbling across a good thing will actually be a precisely placed provision that was engineered for you before you arrived at that field. Ruth didn't know Boaz had instructed his workers to leave extra for her. She just kept working. She just kept showing up. And the abundance found her in the middle of her faithfulness. That is exactly what is happening in your life right now. Keep showing up. The extra is already being dropped. I want to address something that might be stirring in some of you. A voice of skepticism, or perhaps a wound that makes hope feel dangerous. Because some of you have been here before. You've had a moment of spiritual fire, a season where it felt like things were finally turning. And then life happened, and the gap between what you believed was coming and what actually arrived left a scar. And now you're here, and you want to believe, but some part of you is holding back because the cost of hoping and losing again feels like too much. I want to speak directly to that scared part of you. I'm not asking you to pretend the past didn't happen. I'm not asking you to manufacture a faith that bypasses your real experience. That's not faith, that's performance. Real faith doesn't ignore the evidence of hard seasons. Real faith looks at the hard season honestly and then chooses to believe that the author of your story is still writing. Because here's what nobody tells you about delayed promises. The delay does not devalue the delivery. When something is worth a great deal, it takes longer to prepare. You don't rush the making of something precious. And the reason your breakthrough has felt like it's taking longer than everyone else's is not because God values you less. It is because what God is preparing to give you requires a version of you that earlier chapters of your life could not have carried responsibly. The wait was not wasted, not one day of it. Every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling and bounced back, it didn't. Every tear you cried in private over something you were too ashamed to explain to anyone else, God caught it. Psalm 56:8 says, He put every one of them in a bottle, written in a record. Your suffering was documented, and the record of your suffering is sitting right next to the record of your fortune, and together they tell the story of a person whose faith endured what would have broken most people. That kind of faith doesn't go unrewarded. It is not possible, given who God is, for that kind of faith to go unrewarded. I want to take a moment to talk about what happens next, the practical, grounded, day after this video dimension of your life. Because there are people who consume spiritual content and let it live exclusively in their feelings, and then wonder why nothing changes. And then there are people who let what they hear in moments like this restructure the way they actually move through the world. I want you to be the second kind of person. The fortune that has your name on it will require your participation. God is not going to live your life for you. He is going to live it with you. And that means there are some things He's waiting for you to do. Some doors He's waiting for you to knock on. Some conversations He's waiting for you to start. Some habits He's been asking you to build that you've been putting off because change is uncomfortable and the familiar, even when it's painful, at least feels known. Here's a simple question. What is the one thing you have been putting off doing that deep down you know God has been asking you to do? Not a big dramatic thing necessarily. Sometimes it's forgiving someone. Sometimes it's sending the email. Sometimes it's starting the journal. Sometimes it's going back to prayer in a consistent way that you've let slip. Sometimes it's taking better care of your body, treating it as the temple it actually is, because you are going to need your physical self functioning well for the season ahead. Whatever that one thing is, that is your next move. That is the door God is waiting for you to reach for. He has already approved what's on the other side, but He operates through your agency. He moves in partnership with your willingness. And the moment you take that step, no matter how small it feels, you will begin to feel the momentum of heaven catching up with you in ways that will absolutely take your breath away. You are not waiting for a miracle. You are one decision away from entering the season where the miracles become your normal rhythm. As we come toward the close of this message, I want to do something I don't always do. I want to speak specifically to the one watching this who has been carrying a secret grief. Not a visible struggle. People can see your visible struggles. I'm talking about the thing you carry in the quiet. The dream you buried because you got tired of protecting it. The prayer you stopped saying out loud because you were afraid of what it meant if the answer never came. The part of yourself you stopped showing people because every time you showed it, someone found a way to make you feel foolish for having it. That grief is real. God doesn't minimize it. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb, even knowing He was about to raise him from the dead, which tells us that God does not consider tears impatience. He considers them human, and He considers them sacred. So if there is weeping happening in you right now, let it happen. You are not weak. You are cracking open. And things that are cracking open are things that are about to let light in. Because here's what I believe with everything in me. The dream you buried is not dead. It is dormant. And there is a significant difference. Dead things cannot come back. Dormant things are simply waiting for the right conditions. And the right conditions are arriving in your life right now. The temperature is changing. The spiritual atmosphere is shifting. And things that look like they had been buried forever are about to push through the surface and grow in ways that will shock everyone, starting with you. God is not finished with what He started in you. He never abandons a work in progress. Philippians 1:6 says, "He who began a good work in you will carry it through to completion." That is not a suggestion. That is a covenant commitment from the God who does not lie, does not forget, and does not change His mind about His chosen ones. You are a chosen one. You were chosen before the foundation of the world, and the fortune with your name on it is not a consolation prize. It is the original plan, finally arriving at the moment it was always designed to arrive. Here is where we land. Not at the end of something, at the beginning. Because this message was never meant to be a destination. It was meant to be a launching point. A moment where something in you shifted from asking whether God sees you to knowing that He does. From wondering if you qualify to understanding that the choosing happened before you could qualify or disqualify yourself. From enduring a season of hiddenness to recognizing that the hiddenness was the very thing that made you ready for what's coming. The fortune with your name on it is real. It is not a metaphor you conjure through positive thinking. It is a spiritual reality that exists in the realm of heaven and is being pulled toward the realm of your everyday life with increasing force and increasing speed. The document is approved, the signature is on it, and the delivery is in motion. What do you do now? You receive. Not passively, actively. You receive by choosing to believe this is true even before you can see it. You receive by talking differently about your future. You receive by taking the step God has been nudging you toward. You receive by showing up to your life tomorrow with the quiet certainty of someone who knows that something extraordinary is already underway, even when the evidence is still catching up. You receive by dropping 777 or I receive in the comments right now, not because a comment changes God's mind, but because declaration changes yours. Because when you type those words and mean them, You are breaking agreement with every lie that told you this wasn't for you. You are raising a flag over your life that says, I believe, I accept, I am ready. And if this message found you at exactly the right moment, if something in this video pressed on a part of your heart that has been closed for a long time, subscribe to this channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear that they haven't been forgotten. Because there is someone in your life right now who is one message away from choosing to keep going. You could be the reason they do. God sees you. God chose you. God approved the fortune. And your name, your specific, irreplaceable name, is written at the top of that document in ink that cannot be erased, altered, or questioned. Now walk into it. The door is open. Heaven is watching, and everything is about to change.